Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the fiscal 27 budget workshop. Just to note that the information about this workshop there's no public comment component during this workshop today. These sessions are designed to provide the council with the opportunity to focus on discussions with each of the department heads regarding their 27 budgets, addressing concerns and future forecasting needs. We do want to hear from the public. We have dedicated a day, May 7th. It is a little bit of a change based on some scheduling that we had to do or rescheduling of some other departments and when they would be ready to present their budget. So May 7th, I know that's on the website and it's gone out through the civic engagement notification. May 7th, right here at 6 o'clock, we will have the public hearing where you can weigh in on the entire budget at that point. So, with that said, Nick, good evening. Where with this one are we starting with tonight?
Hello again. We're starting with the airport this evening. So if I can have Randy come up, please. And want to appreciate people's willingness to shift which night they were coming or which day they were coming. Flexibility is appreciated.
Good evening.
All right. So why don't I think we had some little bit of feedback last time. So why don't you start with what your budget number is this year, what was it last year, what the difference is, and then walk through the changes. Let's do that, and then we can go wherever you want this story to go.
Absolutely. So this year, the airport is requesting $104,104. I believe in your book it might actually show 102,000. I'm not sure. Yeah. The one small discrepancy there is in the full-time wages. I think there was a typo. Full-time wages are actually $223,210. And then there's just minor FICA and Medicare, so we can get those numbers updated. But 104, 104 is what we're looking for. Fiscal year 26, the request was $84,756. The key difference or the key change that we're seeing is driving that $19,000 and change difference, primarily is in payroll, union contractual changes. For example, my guy Ed, in his union contract for his pay grade change from last year, that was $13,000 alone, just for him.
Could you speak a little louder?
Sure. Is that better? All right.
What's that?
So, and actually, could you repeat what you just said?
Yeah, so we're looking at a change of about $19,000 over last year.
Right.
The majority of which, that's really a derivative of the payroll changes contractually. So in both of my other full-time employees and myself, we did see all three of us together was a $28,628 difference. However, one of my employees no longer requires health care, and that dropped that by like 16,000 or so. So the majority of it is in the payroll, like I said. The remaining budget is pretty flat. I did increase our electricity by $4,000, as I'm sure all of you are aware. Electricity has skyrocketed. The airport is not exempt from that. I think that with heating fuel, those other items, we've made some changes with the new furnace, so on and so forth, and insulation. I feel that we can probably keep the budget flat with that. So those are pretty much, I mean, it's pretty straightforward with us.
And if I may, just to add a further clarity to the point the mayor had asked at the outset, Randy did state what's being asked of taxpayers, but in case it wasn't clear, so little is being asked because there's a lot of revenue at the airport, and so the entire cost of the airport is over $900,000, but the revenue is over $800,000. So that's why the ask of taxpayers is fairly minimal considering.
And I will add that I was conservative on my revenue numbers. One thing that we did right away when we found out that there was some major concerns with the budget, I immediately emailed Nick and Sarah and said, hey, I'm going to implement these changes at the airport. One of those changes is we increased our landing fees. So if I take the same amount of aircraft that I landed last year and increase the landing fees by $25, that's another $20,000 in revenue. So I made that change already, and we will continue with that. We haven't had any problems or any pushback. So I would anticipate that our landing fee revenue, instead of $60,000, is going to be closer to $80,000, just based on the same numbers that we had before. And quite honestly, like I said, it's a very conservative number. 2025, we ended the year at $85,525 in landing fees. So
will that be added into, so that's a further decrease?
Reduction in cost.
Okay,
Reduction in cost, yeah. So.
right, so then we would,
So basically, it would be a net zero change from last year
Right.
for us.
Okay.
Flat budget.
great.
I also increased our call-out fees. So again, what we're trying to do is pass the cost of operating the airport on to the end user directly. So in the past, we would charge $125 anytime an aircraft, so we're only open 56 hours a week. So 7 days a week, 8 hours a day. If somebody needs services outside of that time, they pay $125 for us to come in, and that pays up to 3 hours for one of my guys to come in. We've now updated that to $175 and pushed the incentive for the guys based on hourly wages. We hadn't changed that, so now they get $125, city gets $175, so we're making $50 on that. And that directly offsets our overtime wages, so that pays for that line. But I anticipate another $3,000 in that line.
What about, the other big one obviously is fuel. Do you see any possibility of that?
Well, as I'm sure none of us really anticipated what we're paying at the pump today. I just had to order a load, but I'm being very strategic on how we're doing this. We're hoping that we'll see some prices drop. For example, this week I negotiated with the Auburn-Lewiston Airport so we could split a load of the 100 octane fuel, because I didn't want to pay for an 8,000 gallon load and then have prices drop and then not be able to sell it. So I split the load with Lewiston Auburn at 4,000 gallons apiece, so we paid the same amount of freight coming up from Searsport or wherever it came from, and we both took 4,000 gallons. So my fuel price on my prior, I think I was at $5.19 a gallon for what I was selling it for. I can't even buy it for that. Our sale price today is $6.70 a gallon. So it's gone crazy. And one point that I wanted to make, like I had said, I brought a prop. This is a light bulb. It's a simple light bulb. Nothing special, other than it has the FAA stamp of approval and a little bit of Kestrel poo on it. But this is a spotlight that goes on the approach lights of the airport. And we have 9 towers with 5 of these on each tower. So I have a total of 45 of these that have to be replaced at least once a year. The wind comes along, shakes them, things like that, the filaments go. So I just replaced 11 of them on Monday, in fact. Well, when the system was put in back in 2015, I was spending about $13 to $15 per bulb, which I thought was crazy. And then 2023, after COVID and stuff like that, I was like, wow, these prices have gone up. They've gone up $10. I'm now paying $26 and change for a bulb. And then last year, they jumped again to $38 and change a bulb. I ordered this bulb replacement on Monday, $52 and change. And there's only one manufacturer that makes an FAA-approved light. I said, can I get them an LED? It's got to be cheaper. Nope, $160 a bulb for an LED bulb. There's only one approved. So my cost of operating our airfield have skyrocketed in terms of just simple 45 lights. That's 10% of my facilities maintenance budget just on the approach lights. I've got over 300 edge taxiway lights, so it's crazy, the prices of things. So while I feel the pain and I understand the desire to reduce taxes and the burden, we're doing everything we can to be as efficient as we can with our hands tied behind our back. I can't really operate much more efficient than I am at this point. The $104,000 that it costs the city as a tax burden translates to about $11.88 an hour to operate the airport. The Augusta State Airport's almost $50 an hour to operate.
Yeah, no, listen, I appreciate that a lot. I mean, I think it was pretty cool. Some of you forwarded a document to Nick, who forwarded it out to the council, and you start looking at it and where we rank, up against other airports and things like that. I think it's pretty damn impressive. You know what I mean? I'll be honest with you. I mean, when I first started, the airport was what it was. I didn't have any patience for it, whatever. But the more that you go visit it and you see and what it does and what it brings, that you kind of understand the picture and where it fits globally in the city, and it's pretty awesome the amount of stuff that you do. If you haven't taken a tour and just go and watch and all right, this is the hut, and then you have your little hut that has all the stuff in it that you fix all these lights, and when you look at the space, and it's 3 people, you know what I mean? It's pretty awesome, for, at the end of the day, so kudos.
I'm pretty proud of the crew that we have.
Yeah.
We're a small but mighty force. We work a lot with other airports. They come to us for a lot of advice, and we work with them as well. So it's means a lot to us to be able to have that type of respect in the aviation community because of the way that we run things and we operate things. In the last decade or so, the airport's really gone from an underutilized, local asset to it's arguably one of the strongest general aviation success stories in the state, if not the Northeast. So we've come a long, long ways. In fact, I've been doing the budget for close to 15 years now. When I started in 2015, we had no full-time employees. The grass was 3 feet tall, nothing worked, and it cost the city over $150,000 a year to operate the airport. So we're actually costing less today than we were back then, with a lot more to show for it. And that's thanks to, again, it's the support, it's the equipment that we've been provided, whether it's the icing or lab services or the fuel truck, the improvements to the terminal building, that's all driven more business into the airport and therefore the community.
Yeah.
This is a bit, you might not be able to answer this at the moment, but I think it would be helpful to have some data on the economic impact of the airport.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you have a round number or if we could get that.
Yep, I have it right here.
Great.
So the state of Maine, and I was part of the aviation board that hired the consultant that wrote this. They spent 2 years writing this statewide system plan. One of the things that we asked them to do was to provide an economic analysis of the impact of airports in the state of Maine for every single airport that is what they call a nationally funded NIPIAS airport, so FAA-funded airport. Waterville, we did that. In 2022 was the year that they focused in on and hammered in on $6.5 million to the economy by simply having the airport. Incomes came out of a number of different jobs that are either directly or indirectly related to the airport, whether it's construction jobs, educational, or other. They have a whole breakdown which can actually be found online in the link that Nick sent out. So it breaks it down as to how they came up with these numbers. But 6.6 almost million dollars of economic revenue impact to our community, with an estimated $348,000 in state and local tax revenue generated from that. So we're in the top 10 airports out of 35 that were studied that have that benchmark of 6.6 or higher. And and 4 of those are commercial service airports. So.
Yeah, like the 6th longest runway in the state out of 35, with only Bangor, Portland, Brunswick, Presque Isle, Sanford being longer. You know what I mean? You think,
Yeah.
that's, like, I don't know, it just.
Yeah.
When you
And
just look
we're-
at some of these numbers that you don't even think about, like, really? Like, that just seems ridiculous to me, but whatever, it's kind of cool.
We're holding our own, though.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. Any other questions for Randy? And
I came prepared. Ask anything you want.
yeah? No, well, I mean, the master plan,
Master plan, we actually just had the airport layout plan accepted by the FAA earlier this week. We are closing that project out right now, and we will have that formally published very soon, probably before the end of the month. And we actually have a meeting tomorrow, which will kick off the capital improvement program for the next year with the state and the FAA. This next year, we're going to be looking at redoing and expanding the ramp to accommodate the business aircraft that come into the airport. For example, we had 6 jets today, and I really didn't have anywhere to put them all. So luckily they staggered, but that's not always the case. So that's one of the big things that's coming up. And we have close to $1 million worth of federal money saved up in our coffers to pay for that. The city, on the other hand, would be responsible for 5% of the overall project. One of the things, again, that comes out of the statewide system plan is the tax burden per household for our capital improvement plan for every airport in the state. And Waterville is the lowest at $12.48 per household for tax burden. Some of the houses are almost $800 per household. Most of them falling in around 100, but some really cool statistical data in there. We are the lowest.
all right,
Great.
good. Thank you very much. I think we'll see you on Tuesdays, probably another.
Yep, I'll be back on
Cool stuff coming
Tuesday.
down the pipe there, so that's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm going to stick around for the capital improvement stuff that we have tonight, too. So.
Thanks, Randy. Up
Thank you,
next,
sir.
we have the Code Enforcement Department. If Dan could come up, please.
You got props and coffers? Like, that's a tough thing to follow now. Like, what do you got? Like, manila folder. Like, ooh. Yeah? Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Nice to see you all. Nice to see you all. I would like to maybe give a brief overview of what the Code Enforcement Office does in case there's anybody out there that isn't fully aware. We enforce zoning regulations, land use laws. We conduct plans review and issue permits. We enforce the Maine Uniform Building and Energy Code, the plumbing code, the electrical code for single and two-family residences. We conduct inspections for all projects that we permit, multiple inspections typically, sometimes a great many if they're large projects that take a long time. We enforce the property maintenance ordinance, conduct an apartment building inspection program. We conduct health and welfare inspections for people seeking rental assistance. I act as the local health officer currently, and also have some people that I can delegate some of those duties to if the need arises. We respond to inquiries from developers, contractors, real estate agents, prospective buyers, architects, engineers, business owners, residents, all of the above regarding a whole litany of things. We help to enforce the licenses and permits ordinance as well as the solid waste ordinance. We have 2 code enforcement officers, 1 ordinance compliance officer, and 1 administrative assistant on staff. Currently, this year, so far, year-to-date, we've issued 163 building permits, 108 electrical permits, 67 plumbing permits, and 27 sign permits. Make sure we have the same stuff here. So last year, or this current year that we're in, that looks right, okay. We projected, a revenue of $262,750. I hate to start the meeting out on a negative note, but I don't think we're going to hit that this year. I think we're going to be about $40,000 short. The reason for that is several housing projects have not materialized yet, for one reason or another, quite a few of them actually. I have about $30,000 worth of permit fees, or permit fees on my desk right now, and several houses on top of that as well. So adding all that together, that's what I'm seeing right now, just to have total transparency there. Last year, we, as I said, projected a total revenue of $262,750 with a cost of $418,134 for a net cost of $155,384. Last year, this is always an educated shot in the dark when you're looking at projected revenue. You think you have to look at historical trends in what you've done as well as projects that you know are upcoming. Last year at this time, I was not privy to any large monster projects, as I would call them, which in our revenue at the time reflected that. However, the housing projects did not materialize. The smaller housing projects, the subdivisions, the one larger project on Front Street, did not materialize yet. So that is where that $40,000 hit comes in. This year is very different. I am projecting conservatively, I believe, permit revenue of $355,200 with a cost for our department of $459,420, which means a net cost of $104,220 to run the code enforcement department.
And if I may, the version the council has in front of them is the prior version.
I see, okay.
So what Dan's referencing, and I'll allow him to explain in more detail, is adjustments since the budget book version you have.
Okay.
So now he has both versions, what you have in front of you and what he's explaining now.
Yeah.
Is this anticipatory of the Traffic Road project?
And other projects.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're not expecting all of them. We're being conservative, and if any one of them were to occur, that's what's happening here. The other projects being
Right.
large Colby projects, for
Yeah,
example.
okay.
Yeah.
So do we have copies of those for us or no?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, some of this is very fresh. I'm sorry, I missed what you were saying, but
We'll
yeah.
get copies at some
It's
point?
just
or-
hard
Yes.
to hear all the numbers.
Yeah, I apologize. I did not know. Yeah, when we start putting this together back in January, it's sort of a moving target.
Yeah.
And, we start talking about these projects sometimes, a year and a half in advance, but you don't know when they're going to land. And I never put them on here unless I'm very confident that they are going to land, meaning that, we've talked about times, we've talked about design, we've had lots of meetings in advance. We're at that point now with multiple projects, Trafton Road being one. Colby has two very large upcoming projects. This number that you don't have in front of you, and I apologize, of net cost of, where am I? This is version one.
Well, I mean, just, so in this particular, yeah, I mean, this particular thing, you went up from 215, because I think is the version that we have in front of us, to 350 based on these projects, right? Like, so,
Okay.
The approximate delta of, compared to the original proposed budget is a magnitude of another 125,000 of additional permitting revenue. And that's being very conservative because the total, if all three of those large projects that we're catching wind of were to occur, it'd be double or triple that, depending.
So we have 209 in front of us. Can you say again what the number you're
Yeah.
conservatively?
334 is the number I'm actually presenting.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Kathy, it brings that top
So-
number to 355, 200 for total revenue.
Okay, thank you.
So could you repeat that, please?
Sure. In the permit, plumbing fees and licenses, the 209 was replaced by 334,000. It brings the total on top of the revenue column to 355, 200. And when you minus that from the cost up top, it brings a total impact to the taxpayers of 104,220. And we'll get those updated and sent out.
Okay. So that's the number in the red box, in other words?
Yeah.
Thank you, yeah.
And I mean, I think that's conservative, like I said. I have every indication that these projects are gonna move forward. Colby, I've been working with them for 9 years now. We've done dozens of projects. They've never been late or not done something. And this assumes that one of those projects may not happen until the following fiscal year. That's why I say it's conservative. But I have every indication to believe that they both will fall on this year.
Can you say what those projects are?
Yes, they are the Science Building and the Runnels repurposing,
Okay.
both large projects.
And are those, will those be taxable projects?
I don't
Yeah.
believe so.
Yeah, they're on campus.
They're both on
I believe
campus, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're talking about revenue in permit fees?
In permit
Yeah,
fees, yes.
Gotcha.
I apologize, yeah.
Yeah.
So the Runnels job is a three-phase job, and they're already into phase two. That's brought us 16,000 in revenue. Phase three is the big push, and that's significant, very significant. So since they've already started, I mean, they want it to be done by fall of '27. So, yeah. Any questions on that? As far as costs go, expenses, it's primarily our labor costs is the driving factor. Our operating costs, we propose, last year was 5,420. As you can see, we have not used much of that. We will use more of it before the year is out. We have a training conference coming up, which is a good opportunity. Each one of us can get, I think, 36 credit hours in various disciplines, which is useful to get in one shot. We're requesting 4,520 in operating costs for '27. That's for training, tablet data, data usage, which we use to take tablets into the field so we can reference everything from ordinances to plans to, just not having to carry all that stuff with us. Plus, you can't anticipate what you may need when you're in the field. office supplies, wearing apparel. I put one tablet in there, and we have 3 of them for our department in case one of them breaks, but I don't foresee that happening. But I have that in there just in case. Anything?
Any other questions for Dan? I'm trying to figure out how to ask a question. So like, you went through your basically your summary and, right, like things like, so like, I think we hear a lot, you know, from folks in the community, you know, they drive around and they see things and whatnot. So, you know, like, how does that equate to what comes across your desk? You know, if I have, you know, if I'm someone in town and I have a neighbor that has things that, you know, maybe don't fit, you know, a particular ordinance or something, you know, like how, what's the purview of what you guys do and how you handle that? And what can I as a taxpayer expect?
Well, I assume you're talking property maintenance?
Sure.
Ordinance?
Okay.
Okay. So when there's something that's a violation of that ordinance, that we see it to be a violation of the ordinance, we work with the homeowners, the property owners, to correct that violation. Sometimes that takes considerable time. We close out about a little over 200 a year, different property maintenance violations. We've done that without incurring any court costs, and which is a huge undertaking. Because those court costs can get to be very substantial in expense, and in recovering those, when you're dealing with people who are having financial issues as the root of the violation to begin with, you're not going to get that. So our initial response is never, we always let them know that there is ultimately a penalty if these things aren't corrected. Sometimes they take a while. We work with people, we stay on them, and we give them the benefit of the doubt. There's a difference if it's somebody whose, you know, lawn is a little long than if they've got a porch that's falling down on an apartment building. You know, there's the various different things. So it depends on the severity of it, and we have to use our judgment as far as the time frame to get things corrected. Many times it is financial is the root of it, and we understand that, but having closed out that many, I think that's what we did in calendar year 25. Between 24 and 25, it was around 500 that we had closed out. So although people may say they see something and have a concern about it, they can call us, absolutely. We will look at it, but I would say to anyone that may think there's nothing being done, that the city would look drastically different if we did not proactively enforce that property maintenance ordinance and not incur, you know, tens of thousands of dollars a year in court costs and time for our staff in doing so. Yeah.
So I have a question along that, since that was brought up. That number definitely jumps out on that line for code violation fines and inspection fees. What is that 4,400 primarily between those two? Line 21, sorry.
Oh,
If that's your
I'm
same
sorry.
number.
Oh, okay. Year to date?
Yeah,
Yep, that is penalties.
so that is fines.
Yep,
Okay.
it is, and we collected them without having to go to court for any of them. It's a last resort, it really is. I mean, we hate to do it, but there are particular situations where that's the thing that causes the violation to get corrected, and ultimately, unfortunately.
So I guess, in calling this out, you look at this line, right? So in FY '25, it was, you know, the actuals were $50, right? Like in fines and inspection fees or whatever. So I guess, and then '26, it's the budget was $1,000, and now we've collected $4,400.
Yeah.
Next year, you're projecting 2,700. So there's what's the shift is this violations or inspection fees? Like what, like, 'cause they're two different things, right? Like, so
Yeah.
one I think is a proactive, the other one is a reactive, right? Like,
Yeah.
Am I wrong or no?
No, you're not wrong, but I don't really know why inspection fees are even on there, because we don't charge fees for inspection. This is 100% fines and
Okay.
penalties.
So we're seeing an uptake in the city overall is seeing an uptake in enforcement of these, and, these are in turn
I don't,
resulting in an increase in, because in 25, 2 years ago, we collected $50.
Yeah.
Right? So,
I don't know if it's,
Those numbers seem to be really all over the
it
place.
jumped, like,
Yeah.
it's a good jump. And, I mean, we added staff for the purpose of the enforcement, right? So, like, this is what's happening as a result of,
yeah.
I'm assuming, right?
Well, partially. In '25, we had the same level of staffing that we have now. I think it's
We had
more.
Todd back then, too?
Sorry?
We had Todd back then, too, or
Yeah.
just you and Adam?
Yeah, we
I
did,
didn't-
yeah.
Yeah, I think 23 was when we,
I believe
22,
so.
23, we
Yeah,
added.
I think so. Yeah, I think 23, 24, 25. 25, I think, was our administrative assistant. I think Todd was 24.
Okay.
I think 23 might
I have
been.
a question about that I think gets kind of to the root of what we're asking. Is this more of there are more violations that are happening that we are seeing, or is it more that we are now getting to the point where we have to fine individuals for these violations because they're not being addressed before that point?
It's the second one.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's the most amount of penalties that we've collected since I've been here. Probably all the years put together. We hate to do it, but there's been occasions where we've had to. Yeah. I mean, we've had other substantial fines, 6 Main Place, but we haven't collected that yet. We will when the building sells. But this is the most that we've actually collected.
Oh, the Boys and Girls Club, is that, yeah. That's Lillian thing, yeah, fair enough.
So has the inspection of multifamily properties continued? I know at one point you had a pretty regular cycle and schedule.
Yep. Yes.
Is that ongoing?
It is. It is. We're doing those at the rate of 3 per week. We did have to take a pause last winter to evaluate compliance for what we had already inspected. We wanted to get eyes back in some of those buildings and confirm some things, and just make sure that people knew that this isn't like any inspections that happened, 20 years ago, that there was an actual expectation to correct these things. And enforcement is on the table when it comes to that. It's been a huge success. Everything from just simple things to hinges that close your door when you're running out the door in a common corridor. If somebody has a fire in their apartment, they don't close the door behind them, and then the smoke and the fire gets in the corridor. I mean, that's a couple of dollars, and it's just, people are thankful when they know that now. We've done that. We've had some sprinkler systems that are being put in now and some that are in the design stages. Some of these things have a very heavy financial price tag. So we work with those people to slowly bring them safer. If they're in a building that requires sprinklers, we'll make sure that they have their alarm system, everybody's notified, egress is good, emergency escapes are in good shape so people can get out, while this work to get this building sprinklered is being planned for financially. It's a significant cost. And plus, design, permitting, all of that stuff takes quite a while. Sprinkler companies are very busy. I mean, if you had the money right now, it could take a year and a half to get it in, depending on the size of the job, of course. But, you know, smoke detectors, little things, you know, really. I mean, we go in some places, absolutely no smoke detection at all. So that's an easy fix. So yes, huge benefit. And I'd say it's a success. It doesn't have a revenue component to it, but it has value, I believe.
Absolutely.
It takes up a lot of time. But you have safer buildings. And I believe that. I think we have a good relationship with the landlords. Yeah, I think it's gone well.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Dan? Okay.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
In the forthcoming meetings, all the different changes we've talked about, both at this meeting and prior meetings, will be disseminated, and we'll wrap them up in like a simple format as well as update the budget. So you'll be able to see them all at once, and then as needed in the budget. Up next is third-party requests. Perhaps the council is aware, but just for the public that may not be as familiar, any municipality might have this situation in which area businesses, usually nonprofits or charitable organizations, but can be otherwise, can submit a request to the municipality in which they're operating to have some assistance financially if they feel they're doing a public good. And then it is upon the city council ultimately to see what they're able to fund. To further put a point on it with Waterville specifically, because that's what we're talking about, when these requests come in, we outline them for the council. And then the next step is to, when applicable, see where funds can be coming from places other than taxpayer funds. So you'll notice on the third-party request page that there is Haynes-funded portions of some of these requests. So that would be, the taxpayers would no longer have to pay for that. The Haynes Fund received an application and it was covered to meet those needs. Another area in which it wouldn't even land on this page would be some organizations might ask for funding and they might be eligible for TIF funds. That's a less frequent case, but we'll get to that when TIFs come up. And then you'll notice the council approved, it says, is 0. It's not to try to lead you down that path or whatnot, but that's historically what's a version of what's happened in Waterville, whereas particularly in rough budget years, but I think otherwise, when these asks come in, it's their right to be able to put forward the request. We see what Haynes can cover, we see what TIFs can cover, and what is left is zeroed out in the preliminary budget, but is up for your discretion to inquire about. So I would leave it up to questions and/or the finance director if she'd like to add anything.
Any questions with how this particular sheet looks at this moment? Sure.
I'm just a little puzzled by some of the items that are in FY 2026 budget, which I see, that was funded by the Haynes Fund. Is that what I'm looking at? Okay, so these were requests that were made to the Haynes Fund. But that's not part of our operating budget,
Haynes is not.
right?
But this year, they made the requests. The requests are all listed under the 2027 request line. What we thought would be eligible for Haynes funding, we bounced out to the committee. They gave a official response of what they would cover in what amount. So we added that column saying what they were covering. And so if you go down through, you can see, I think the first one's the shelter, made a request. Haynes didn't make an appropriation for the shelter and didn't feel it fit the guidelines the way they have to qualify people to determine if they're eligible. So they didn't put anything there, so that's still up for consideration by the council. And I do know, Haynes, you should have gotten a letter originally in your books. If you didn't, I will find it. While they put money toward the food pantries, they asked that the council consider matching their donation to the food pantry to help fund. And so I know they put that in their response, so I will get that out to the council before final decisions may be made on the budget as a whole. But that's what I have left for information for ones that were not funded by Haynes.
So, further question for clarification. There's a committee that makes these decisions. So that is not within the council's purview to, this is just information for us?
It's information of the request officially came in for the council to consider these. We identified them as potentially being able to be funded. So the independent committee, we bounced the information via health and welfare out to the independent committee meeting and said, could you take a look at these and see if Haynes could fund any of these requests
Okay.
under the guidelines? They came back with those amounts as that they were willing to fund with their funding sources. And the ones remaining still sit for council consideration, yay or nay.
And so are we newly tapping into the Haynes? I'm not really confused because I understand the Haynes Fund and that it is, application process. So I'm a little confused as to why they are providing for some of these, given the very strict stipulations that residents have to go through for that application. Like, for example, I'll throw one out like Life Flight. I'm not really sure how that qualifies under Haynes.
Life Flight provides emergency services to women and children in need. And if you look at the volume that they provide to the community annually for all the citizens, I think it translated to like $65 million, 65,000 or something in calls to provide to those. So they felt the request was reasonable to be applied for a one woman's flight that would be eligible or a child's. So they funded that. So if they provide a service to under income or areas that have lack of resources to get some of the needed things, under Haynes, it is specifically for working women, not GA eligible, but there is still a need, or children in
Right.
need. And so any organization that are providing summer camp to low-income or disabled children, and show that they provided directly to Waterville residents that meet that, would have been eligible for some of these also. So when you look at those, they tried to get the data on who in Waterville was served and make them show that they were eligible participants.
Okay.
I just have to say, I find it hard to believe that the main homeless shelter did not qualify in any way for any funding through Haynes.
I mean, to be fair, they've received a pretty good chunk.
The homeless shelter in the past was told that they were not eligible because men were staying there unless they collected all the individual data on the people that they were billing for. And when I was in the meeting speaking just for my half, they did not want to do that because the people that were there did not like to be asked questions or come down and fill out the paperwork.
Okay.
And we said, well, anybody receiving general assistance or receiving Haynes funds, it's required that you provide the documentation. So they are welcome to come down and apply for that. but we can't just give it out without verification.
Okay,
So-
so we're talking, it sounds like we're talking about two different things, individuals who make a request versus an organization which is receiving funding.
The organizations clearly have to show that they serve 3 families with an income under X, or 3 children that were living in those poverty guidelines. So these camps and things of that nature, were able to provide on one of them that they provided services to children that were living within the South End to attend this special needs camp in the summer. And it was very specific to what they had for an income and what they were charging for it. So some of them provided clear data that indicated that. It's not just, we'd like to have this amount. They would need to provide clear data to say, we served X number of women and children there that are within this income guideline, and provide that data, I would think, for it to be considered, so.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So I'm just wondering along those lines, and have we created a separate application for organizations for the Haynes Charity Fund then? Because it feels like we're kind of doing this, they are treated a little differently than a resident who went in to fill out an application.
I don't believe so. I think actually more data came in from the organizations than is required for individuals. You'd have to speak to Denise, she gives out the applications for that program, on what is required from those.
Yeah, it's my understanding I have one actually. I requested one. And it is pretty in-depth, like the process for a resident. And she did say she's working on changing it and simplifying it. But for me, I just feel like it's a lot for the residents. And certainly it doesn't sound like it's not a lot for organizations, but it should certainly be fair, like, because this was set up for a purpose, and now it seems like we're getting more sort of flexible with it. So I just want to make sure it's being utilized where it's needed.
No, I think the committee members scrutinize it pretty good. They rejected this year recreation funding, and one of the other programs that was being funded last year, because they didn't feel that and I did call over to the AYCC, and we could not get clear data to show the people being subsidized were income eligible, and that there were not men and being subsidized by it, and it clearly stipulates. So without that information, those two things went back into the regular recreation budget.
Okay.
And so there are some that did get rejected because they didn't feel that they got the data necessary to make those decisions.
Okay.
So.
So I'm sorry, I'm still confused here. What Haynes is funding in 2027, based on the request to the city, is $41,000. It includes $10,000 to the AYCC backpack program, but not to the South End Summer Program. Is that correct?
No, the South End Summer Program, they are supportive of it. However, the AYCC does not have a plan for how that's going to be run or what they're going to do. They're thinking about busing the children from there directly over to the center, so they're not in an open field. And there was a problem last year with meals. And so Haynes said when they get ready with a plan, they can apply directly to the committee. They weren't ready to say what they needed at the time, so.
Okay. And the Winslow Community Cupboard, $5,000 to Waterville residents?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
I think you could ask them directly. I believe in the paperwork that I received was the Winslow Community Cupboard provides a substantial amount of meals here in Waterville to the residents. There's something about them having events and bringing meals over. They made a presentation to the council last year, I believe, on that, and also the Waterville Pantry. But I really don't want to speak for them. I can look at what I have for data that was provided in the request and gladly give that to you for your next meeting before it's finalized, so you can look at it in more detail.
Yeah,
Be
well,
happy
since
to
we're
do-
talking about, qualifications and meeting data expectations, I think it's important to ensure
Yeah, I
that
mean,
we
I
have
think
that.
along that same line, if we're looking at it that way, our Waterville area soup kitchen definitely serves a lot of people in our community, and they're being allocated less than the Winslow. So for me, yeah, it's, like where it says any, so who determined the dollar amounts? Those ones that say their request was any, and then the actual fund
The
amount?
committee,
Okay.
the committee made all the decisions. So you
the
would have
committee,
to speak
yeah.
to the Haynes Committee of why. I wasn't at those meetings.
So
I don't want to speak for them. I only
Right.
can tell you the
Yeah, no, no, no.
regulations of the fund.
I'm looking at the letter from the Winslow folks, and it says, "We've included the number of residents from your town currently signed up to receive food twice a month from the Winslow Community Cupboard in our last mile program." So they took that into account. That's probably why the funding they did.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that, but I'm still kind of stuck on the Waterville area soup kitchen not getting at least as much. They do a lot for this community.
I also don't understand why the Winslow Community Cupboard has provided more data in this than. Sorry. I'm also confused as to how that is more data than the homeless shelter provided, because they talked about how many individuals in our community as well, and I don't see the Winslow Community Cupboard broken down by gender or children or any of that, so.
Do we have
Do you
a,
have all the letters and the documentation?
yes, yeah.
Oh, so I don't have to get it to
We
you.
do have the letters. I didn't see them before. Do we have a total amount of funding that is in the Haynes Fund currently?
I would have to check with Denise on what's in there now.
A lot.
Well, right, it would be helpful to get the full picture of what's in
Sure.
those funds,
Sure.
right?
I can
Okay.
get that.
Great, thank you. So in terms of procedurally, tonight, we have $0 allocated to third-party requests in the budget, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so it is an option for the council to add items.
Yes.
Okay.
And furthermore, you wouldn't have to make that decision right now, of course.
You what?
If you wanted to make any changes, you have till the budget votes.
Right,
So.
yeah, exactly. yeah.
The way you said that, I thought you said,
I thought you said we
you-
had
you
to
have to
do
make
it.
it, we have to do it right now, and I was like, we do, really? Okay, fair enough. I was like, wow, all right. Yeah, no, I mean, yep. Any questions with regards to third-party requests at this point? Okay. Moving on to the next one.
Yeah, debt service is next.
Debt service.
And to be more clear, when bonds are taken out in prior years, we have to pay them back. And there's certainly more data to come at next council meeting for some other matters, but I'll let the finance director speak to any questions. She was here for some of this, of course.
Well, I think the breakdown of the bonds, in your reports that I give you on the financial data, there's always a bond sheet attached to it. and it tells you what those projects were for each bond and which ones have been completed and what's outstanding. And this is just the associated debt that's due in the current years, but that one certainly gives you a spreadsheet of what's outstanding on each individual one in that financial report. So I don't know if you have any further questions or want any more detail on any of them than what you already have. I will tell you that when we get to the TIFs, I have applied a lot more of TIF funding to offset the cost of this year than what we did last year.
In the out years, like next year, will we pay off any of the bonds, or will we? I was just curious how this looks in the future.
It's on that quarterly one that I give you of what the amount is for each year and what each bond has left outstanding on it. You should have it. It's not in the budget book. It's in the financial quarterly that I would have given you for the last one was period ending December. You would have got it in the January meeting packets. I believe it was in January when
I
I
think-
presented.
No,
It might have been, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. We could take a look at this and say, like, so this year, like from budget year 26 to budget year 27, the reduction in the bonds has been this is about 244,000 from what we paid last, when you look at the like, if you look at the 2011 bond, right, we're 160,070 is our payment on it, which is down from 167 last year. So is that what you're asking, Scott? Like what are we looking at? You know what I mean? So every year we do see a reduction in our bond payments, or interest or, whatever.
Well, not necessarily. When the new bonds come online, we see an increase. I believe what he was asking me was, do we have any upcoming that are going to be paid off and drop off completely? And I would need my other scheduled document that I provide to the council on a quarterly basis to flip to that page to show you where each one is. I just don't have it here tonight.
Well,
And
okay.
if you have that scanned report there, Mr. Mayor.
No, but 2011, it says FY 2032. So we're assuming that 2032
Be
is
the
when-
last year.
But only the bonds that we're paying for are on here, right? Like, so, I mean,
Correct.
these are we have, what is it, 2011, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
8,
7,
9.
8 bonds.
Yeah.
Right, like, so, and, the one that we did last year, 2025, that you see a positive of 374 because last year we didn't make a payment on, we just paid.
The interest only.
Right, so this is but the other ones you can see are declining in a period of, whatever this is, overall.
Correct. So
So in 2032, we'll have one bond come off, and then 2033, we'll have another one come off. So like, if you look at that, so, yes.
So I'm trying to square what I'm seeing on the budget page with a net change decrease of 141,000 in our debt service.
So the actual net change in debt service is positive of 139. That's a little lower. Total debt service cost, if you go to the right. And the reason for the net decrease is because we're using more TIF funds than last year to pay on debt service. But the overall debt service has increased since last year because of the bond from 2 years ago now having
I
principal
see.
and
Okay.
interest. Yes.
Got it. Okay.
So if we had used the same amount of TIF funds as last year, proposed in this year, it would be 139 increase. But we're able to use more TIF funds this year strategically.
So we're using
but-
about twice the amount of TIF funds, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
But TIF funds are,
Well, they must be targeted for a particular
yes,
purpose.
I understand.
And that's not lost on us. So we're not just using TIF funds for any old debt service, only for debt service that would have been an eligible cost. When,
Right.
construction of the police station, that's an example. You can pay on the debt service for that building as an eligible cost.
Right.
So not all these debt service costs are eligible for use of TIF funds.
Yeah, got it. And I guess the point that I'm trying to get to is we have TIF funds that can be spent on eligible costs, and there are many of them, right? So, I mean, there are many different things that we use TIF funds to fund in our budget, right? So are there other things? I mean, I think it's a good thing to use them to offset the debt, certainly, but I'm wondering what they would have been used for otherwise that's not getting funded through TIF funds.
They're being utilized substantially on the report that I just sent out that I will give to the council next Tuesday, when to the Finance Committee members. It clearly breaks down what every TIF dollar has been spent for the past 3 years, showing that 2 years ago, well, the past 2 years and the projections for this year. And 2 years ago, it was $287,000 in the hole because it was overspent. Last year, it was 330-something thousand to the positive effect, but you had to take the 287 away from it. So after it was spent, there was $50,000 left of the TIF, eligible TIF funds. And then going added to what's projected, not expended at this point this year, it comes to 100 and something thousand total between what was left out of $2 million. So they are utilized each and every year for projects that fit within there, and there are no large balances being carried in any of the funds. We don't usually like to spend them right to the exact dollar, because if the assessments, which it did change, the tax assessments, we lost 200 and something thousand dollars 2 years ago on the pipeline because of the new calculations for the Summit Pipeline project.
Well, maybe we could pick this up when we get to TIFs, because obviously there's a lot more to it. But, you know, again, I'm just trying to understand how we're allocating those TIF funds. They should, I guess my point is, they should be going to things that we absolutely have to pay for and not things that are nice to have, right?
I would agree, especially in a rough budget year, and that's
Yeah.
what you see here. So the debt
Right.
service is, we must pay this. So that's why
Right.
in a tough budget year, we were creatively doubling the amount of TIF funds that were eligible to be used on things we must pay.
Right.
So your question earlier of what would they have been spent on if not this? So let's say 250,000 wasn't added to debt service. It would have been on nice to have things, and we're
Right.
foregoing those.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair. I just, you know, when I read your budget memo, Nick, I saw that cost drivers were debt service growth, the shift from interest-only payments to combined principal and interest. So I was expecting something less rosy on the debt service discussion. So I think it's great that we can use those funds to decrease that.
Those basically consist of re-examining, because you put a lot of money into the downtown project, and downtown infrastructure, public infrastructure is eligible. Your portion of paving and those type of things is an eligible expense. Also, under that, had the ladder truck debt service for the ladder truck of 81,000 that was decided would be paid for TIF funds because you needed the ladder truck in the downtown. So that debt service, and then we examined it and found out that the police department's an eligible expense because it's part of the downtown TIF. That property was singled out, and any improvements during the course of that TIF are eligible. And so for this year, we added that on. So we re-examined all of those most recent notes since the downtown's been done in the city center, and said, can we cover any more of this debt service from this? So we did shift that to try to reduce the tax burden.
Any more on debt service? If not, we can move on to TIFs. And like Christina has alluded to, there are other avenues to discussing this in greater depth if we don't get to it all today, but.
So do you all have the fold-out large sheets? Okay. So at the very top of it, I start out with what I expect unaudited coming into this year, based upon what was expended in the prior year. And then we put the projected TIF revenue in the next line for the upcoming year across the top. So you'll see up top, there's the airport. You come down, estimated balance in that fund, $20,146. We expect the projected TIF revenue coming in for the current year to be $43,938 based upon prior, which creates the total TIF funds available of $64,084. And so available, because there is no CEA payment, is $64,000. That money can only be used out at the airport. It's captured specifically for the airport. So propose out of $64,000, putting forth $45,000 as an offset to Randy's budget. That leaves, at the bottom of that, $19,000 in that fund. So depending on if Ally does any adjustments to assessed values out there on what is captured under that, and if it varies, there is a little variable there that would remain should Randy come back for some sort of project that he needs a matching fund or something out at the airport. You could utilize that for a small amount if it holds its value of what's projected. And that's how they basically work across. And then it goes down, and where the blue boxes are, I highlighted, according to the TIF documents, potential usage of each fund, because they're categorized by what you can use them for in different TIFs.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question real quick before, just because, and I'm sorry, I'm not picking on you, Randy, just because but like, so when we look at the airport, right, and we look at the June 30th, 2026, 20,000, and then after 64, and then, is that correct, the FY '25 uses? Or should that be 20, like, or when, see,
Where are you?
the $45,000, when was that spent? Because if we're projecting
Oh,
revenue-
that should be projected for the, yes,
Should that
in
be
the little
FY
spreadsheet,
27?
27.
Thank you.
You are
Okay.
correct. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I missed that in the little, down here.
Oh,
And so,
In the little fine print
I was
to
like, how are you
change
spending
it.
money? You spent money, like, that's pretty awesome. Like, look at you.
and so that
Top
40,
time machine over there, what's going on?
Good catch. I got to wash these
Yeah.
glasses.
so that 45, so that would come off the budget he presented to us.
That's right.
correct?
And if you
Okay.
look in his budget, it should say that TIF revenue injected is $45,000 as
It-
part of his revenues. So
It
it's
does-
already in there to reduce the impact to taxpayers. It's already put in.
Right, so it's, but it doesn't, so I see it as a revenue, which is, it's not an earned revenue, exactly, right? It's coming to the airport through taxation. It's not like a fee, right? It's, where does it get expensed? Does this budget show that sort of detail? What is it offsetting exactly?
I guess I'm not following what it's offsetting. There are TIF revenues in the TIF fund. The TIF fund is not general fund revenues. They use the tax assessment process to determine what is collected for TIFs, but it's not general fund taxes.
I understand that.
And so, well, I only explained that we carry it in Fund 4100 outside of the general fund. And so all of the reporting on that is done under Fund 41.
In case helpful, it is expensed, you can see it on the summary page at the very front of your budget. It is accounted for as having to be raised in the first place. The 2.133 number there on tax increment finance funds. So that's where it's brought in, and then it's internal transfers of revenue to the proper accounting.
Right,
So-
but I guess along the same lines as what Rebecca asked, that's why I asked the question if that 45 is coming off the budget presented to us, but in fact, it's not. So
No.
I think that's the question, right? It's like where, like, if the budget's presented to us, where was that 45 in the budget before it was, used as
It's on
TIF
line
funds?
20 It's line 26 of the airport budget, TIF
Well,
revenue.
it's showing that that
45,000.
revenue is coming from the TIF fund, but
Right.
but it's not paying for salaries, right? It's paying for some kind of operating cost, correct? Like,
Right.
You can think of it as coming off of the maintenance. So we have a 45,000 between equipment and facilities, that's 45. So you can kind of theoretically think of it that way.
right, so like between lines 53 and 4, facility maintenance, vehicle maintenance, that,
That would be
Is-
higher? Is that what you're saying? Okay,
right,
thank you. That's
If-
helpful.
okay.
Okay, so I think I got it. For example, well, some of these are a little bit clearer than others, because if you take a look at like City Center, it's 81,000 off the fire truck debt payment. That's pretty self-explanatory of what the 81,000 is going for. But when you have equipment and safety items in that same City Center of 144,000, what, like, I guess I don't know what that entails, because that's a pretty broad category of equipment and public safety items, could be all sorts of things. Is that located in, we'll say, public safety budget as a line item that can be expanded on a bit more?
Yeah, off to the side, it's, says a plow truck, and that's replacing one of the trucks that clear snow and operate in the downtown area and in the city center.
Okay.
That was a high priority capital item that needed to be done that we could fit under there for
Okay, I
equipment.
see.
So there's two appropriations, one under one
Yeah.
and one under the other to make up the full amount for the truck and the sander.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
So to be, in column, or, well, I see it on this, but so on column F, whether we have the actual uses, right? Like, so just as we're doing in the city center, the 144, because we're focused on that one. So the plow sand /sand truck downtown district, and what's the $300, the $300,000 represent?
The $300,000 is those two added together? The 144 and the 156?
Yeah, there's a 156, yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry, yeah, okay, column M, so, okay, so it's coming out of the plummet, okay, perfect, thank you.
So $30,000 is in here for a grant match, funds, right, under the city center TIF.
As well as 20 from Alphon Commons.
So
So for a total of 50.
50,000. What did we need to expend in grant funds, a grant match last year?
Last year, I believe it was very limited. You put 12,500, I think, into the Victorian District match. And then there was some taken, not from this fund, but from capital fund for the LED project, lighting project. It wasn't fully expended. It's in the capital, the grant match still. This was just adding to it so that if a grant was obtained that required a 25% match, there would be funds there.
I just question whether we need $50,000 in grant match money. That was something new that we added for the first time last year, right? Yeah.
That's correct, because the year before, there was 2 or 3 that there was no funds available for the match, and then they had to go look at fund balance in other places. So it was discussed to have a little bit of funding there. So if you apply for something and it requires a 25% or 30% match, you have a little bit. How much?
I
And when you
understand.
put it there,
Yeah. I guess I'm just identifying this as one area we could reduce.
And it's probably already been stated otherwise, but when we make reductions from things that were proposed to be funded by TIF monies, it does free up TIF monies, but then we need to find other eligible uses. And at some point, we run out of eligible uses, but we're not there yet, so,
Okay,
yeah.
right. That's my assumption, that it's not a problem to find something to spend the TIF funds on, but is that correct?
For tens of thousands, correct. When it gets to be hundreds of thousands,
Right.
it may be adding back in nice to haves because we've already tried to account for the necessities that we must pay for.
Okay, thanks. Sorry. The other thing I'm wondering about is the $10,000 for the Community Land Trust and $10,000 for the Historical Society.
Yes, we had targeted that as one thing that could be reduced, and you
Okay.
could explain what numbers you might like. They were organizations that did ask third-party requests, but they were identified as ones that would be TIF eligible. The $10,000 each, when we were looking for our initial rounds of possible cuts, we did suggest that both of those could be reduced, but by different numbers. It is ultimately up to you. The Land Trust down to $7,500, and the Historical Society down to $2,500. And it's not to pick on them. It's that number was specified because they have a program in which they ask for donor levels, and that's their highest donor level. So we didn't just pull that number out of nowhere. You know.
What is the small project that's referenced within, for 150,000 from Andy? That's coming at 100,000 from the downtown and then 50 from the pipeline summit gas.
There's 100,000 that's set aside for paving. There's no other appropriation for paving this
Okay.
year. And 50,000 we started funding last year in a combination. There was an insurance check and a portion of TIF money to give him 50,000 to address the drainage problems on Trafton Road and small projects in town. This is just to continue to put 50,000 there so he can fix some of these little issues around town.
Okay.
This, correct me if I'm wrong, this was something we approved to save him from having to come to us every single time, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's,
Yep.
okay, make sure I was remembering that.
I wanted to
correctly.
make sure that this was in fact that, and this wasn't a specific small project that he was spinning up.
And we may or may not have mentioned this during the Public Works portion of the presentations, but from a prior iteration of budgeting, we did identify ways to offset part of the paving and that budget from the TIF monies. So we will identify that on our list of things moving or being cut or and whatnot when we total those up.
So, again, so we're proposing to fund the small projects fund with 150,000 of TIF funds this year?
No, we're proposing to put 50,000 into the fund that Andy uses for his small projects. And then I have 100,000 set aside to address any paving issues.
Oh,
There-
I see. Got it. Okay. And again, I mean, just, I'd be curious to know how much money was used this past year. I mean, obviously, it's awkward because the year hasn't ended yet, but do we have an estimate on that?
I could give you an exact amount of what it was last week. On Tuesday night, when I give you a report, because his small project fund is on his report.
Okay.
With
I mean,
all of
just-
those fund balances and what's been expended last year and the current year and what was added. So it would be easier. if I had to guess, I think he probably, because he had the other 14 from the insurance and what we added to it, he was worried about going over. But I think he had maybe 14,000 left of the 50.
Okay.
But please don't
Just-
hold me to it.
Well, a ballpark is nice to know, and I think just in terms of our fiduciary responsibility, we put something in a fund and say, it's for this purpose, let's track how it's being spent, and if it's being spent, that's all.
And as Christina noted, there will be more in-depth reporting at the Tuesday night council meeting for
Okay.
anyone looking for that. Another thing I wanted to point out in here, to honor that it was brought up at a prior meeting, the economic and community development position that has been on the books through different names or iterations. It wasn't a new position request. There was some discussion of perhaps taking a second look whether or not all counselors wanted that to be the case or not. That is within this budget because this is the preliminary budget. If it is the desire of the council ultimately to change that ask, we have contemplated alternatives. So there's what's proposed in the budget, that position being a full-time position with salary and wages. Alternatively, we have discussed, if it's the will of the council not to have it be full-time, that we could continue some version of what we've been doing with a part-time person that happens to now be Nate, the intern, and that's working out very well. So it's not all or nothing. We have contemplated if we were to reduce that just to what we are already doing, there would be well over 100, probably more, 100,000 plus of savings, maybe even 130,000 because we wouldn't be paying benefits, So.
Thanks.
I guess on the TIF, my last comment, unless somebody has some further questions, is just that we use those TIF funds to pay for many of the outside agencies that are doing economic and community development on behalf. And that's directly, they're qualifying entities that do that. So that takes away from them impacting and increasing the tax burden while still having economic development activities. So you can see under the TIF budget, the breakdown itself, it lists what we're funding and what the total of those are. So that's usually close to $200,000 a year to pay for those type of entities also for economic community development activities.
One other thing to note, because it was mentioned at one point that perhaps staff salaries might not be eligible. In fact, in some instances, if
Right.
the certain personnel like myself
Yes.
do a portion of their work that impacts economic and community development, within reason, we can use a portion of my salary or the assessor's salary, the finance director's salary, but just a portion, not in entirety.
Right. When I made that comment, I was thinking more about airport. But yes.
And those are all broken out on the second page. We had some questions about that 4 years ago, and there was a substantial amount of salaries being included from the TIF funds. We've reduced that from almost, I think, 600 and something thousand dollars to what it is here, 281,000, and it tells you what percentage of each position is included.
Oh. Okay. Still have more questions. So, under revolving loan funds from this, and accessibility and rehabilitation and repairs that are coming from the city center TIF and the downtown TIF, are those being added to the wealth fund? Is that what that is?
It is hoped that it be added to the wealth fund, and I briefly mentioned it to Nick, but with everything going on and him being new, it hasn't been able to be brought, I think, before the council. I have had calls from individuals here that could use assistance with handicap ramps and some challenges that would probably be income eligible, but we tied the wealth fund that it has to go through another organization. And they have a backlog, and they weed through their case files. That may be other communities in front of them because they're handling multi-communities under their agencies. So it is my recommendation for those type of things that maybe we could take and review the applications in-house. Because I know some of the people who called me could not get in their house with their wheelchair, and they could not find any funds for accessibility, and I think that's what those funds were intended to do.
Exactly.
And then they're not doing it.
Exactly. I mean, that's my concern, that there's quite a bit of money in that fund that isn't being utilized. So I want to look at ways that we can move it to help people and not let it just sit there. So will that be
Right now,
a recommendation coming to the council then?
I certainly hope so. We did give out 3 pieces under that, one for the siding on the house next to 3 Carrion. And KV Cap got 2 grants under that.
Right.
For weatherization and things, but not to the extent that when I get other calls from people who are clearly eligible and they're on Social Security and they have a challenge and there's no one that can help them, my hands are really tied with that. So it would be my recommendation that those standards be changed so those funds can be used when people are in need, but.
Bring it on.
Just one quick one. Can you elaborate on the one that's school and education, 21,247? It doesn't have an explanation with it.
Under the TIF, the Gilman's School.
Yep.
When they redid those apartments, that income belongs to the school because it was their building. So anything captured under the TIF that we do not give back to the people who are running the housing over there has to be an offset to the school budget.
Oh, okay.
So it's an automatic injection. It goes into our general budget, but because the school's part of our general budget, it's considered the offset. But I just mark it clearly school, so we don't plan on spending it elsewhere.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Final question. I'm looking at the balances in each fund, right? And I noticed that, like, under the downtown TIF, there's $131,000 balance remaining. So I'm wondering, with a total of roughly 180,000 remaining in TIF funds, how do you decide what percentage of TIF funds need to remain in the balance from year to year?
Well, we try to fit in a cost under categories where they're eligible. So as you can see, it may leave some at 300 and something thousand. It may leave some at higher. Overall, because it's all in the TIF funds, some have gone in the hole for projects, and we use the others to level it out for the general fund overall. So it's really kind of a balance. It's like your general fund. You never want it completely in the hole. You might overexpend in one department and underexpend in another, but you want it to stay in a good position. So I like to see it always, the total at least 100,000, a little more. As I said, last year we lost year before we lost over $200,000 in just a pipeline because of the assessment adjustment. We did really well this past year in the downtown with the new assessments in the downtown. And you can always utilize it during the year if we take in more and something comes up. You have that authority. You did it last year with the set aside for the money for the concourse if Uncle Dean's moved over there. So that's still earmarked for Uncle Dean's. That's still in the set aside for that. With the idea that that could be utilized elsewhere if you have another major project that you want to move it to. What we don't want to get is back in a negative position, so when you start the year, we already have to take $200,000 or $300,000 off the top. So I try to get it as close as reasonably possible with leaving try to leave around 100,000 there, 150, to see where the assessments come in. But if you pick up a lot more during the year, certainly would be a consideration that if something comes up during the year that's an eligible expense, you could certainly use those funds.
So the number you're referencing when what you just explained is the 179,885, correct?
It's yeah, way down at the bottom.
Yeah.
On the big spreadsheet, it said 172,404 on mine, in the yellow all the way at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's-
it's
Okay,
170.
there may have been a change made while I was away, and I didn't get the new one in. Close enough. That's what I'm referencing at
Okay.
this point.
Okay.
Yeah. And my numbers are still, we're hoping very soon, but my numbers are my best guess estimates, and they're still not the audited numbers. So I like that to be finalized too.
Okay. So you're saying, so as a whole, the number matters more than each individual for the most part? Okay.
The next year, if something is 5,000 in the hole, and we are going to make 20 on it, I'll look to propose only spending 15 or less out of it to balance it back out. But if we projected spending that, it was approved to spend that, and then when the tax assessments were done, we lost money on that fund, it could put it in a negative position. And there's nothing I can do about it once that happens, except bail it out the next year.
So, one final thing. There's no allocation from either Lockwood Building or Manor Gardens in the budget, even though there are funds in those accounts. Is that because there aren't eligible expenses, or is it because you're trying to keep the overall balance at a certain level?
No. What was eligible expenditures for those? I mean, we could put something there, but there wasn't much, even with the new appropriation, that they're going to generate after we pay the CEAs on them. One is going to have after
Right.
$7,000.
Yeah.
And the other one is 12.
Yeah.
So collectively, out of the 100 and something, it's 19,000 of the general. If there was something that would have carried the 50,000 or 30,000, I probably would have hit one of those lines.
Okay,
That's the only reason.
thank you.
Any additional questions regarding TIFs?
Up next, Capital Improvement Plan, CIP.
Is everybody on their fold-out sheets for that? Okay, well, all of the departments submit to me a list of what their needs are for the upcoming 3 or 4 years. Some do better than others, but we're getting there. And then we plug them in based upon what we think possibly can be funding strategies and amounts available that we may be able, and then they tell me what their highest priorities are. What are your wants? What would you like to see in the future? And what's imperative that we get? So I take that whole list. I take just the interest earnings above what you've already committed for revenues in the budget, whether I earn 100,000 or 300,000 above the 280. And I put that into this. I look at these and say, is there anything in here within the downtown city limits or anything that can be funded with TIF funds that's a high priority? And I develop a list of smaller projects or things that are high priorities that I think that we can take care of with those other funding sources. So you can see at the administration level, we have a back fire door that has a lot of rust and problems with it out around the back toward where the elevator is. We had got some quotes on that for $30,000. I put that down as an administrative item that I would like to fund. We go down to the next one. The airport is a restriping machine. Andy's, he's still over there if anybody wants to ask him a question about how important his restriping machine is. The chapel. The chapel, we had gotten quotes on fixing the chapel over on Grove Street before I was hired. And there has not been one penny set aside for grant matches, for repairs, for anything. Andy went over and looked at it, and we believe there are some repairs that can be made to it before it's put on the historic registry that will not change the historic structure of it, but in the manner in which it's done would be more cost-effective to do it before listing it. So it is hoped that we get some funds there to address some of those underneath structural pinning issues and the copper tile slate roof that we can do, and then start applying for grants for the rest. So we'd like to try to start to put a little money aside toward the chapel repairs and do what can be done to try to improve that building. There is $60,000 that was proposed for station maintenance, and that is directly tied to some of the new positions that were put on and the need for sleeping space and shower space. And if Nick wants to talk in more detail, safety equipment. Oh, I'm sorry, did you want something? Oh, okay.
Where was it? I'm sorry, what line is that? Sorry.
Human resources, safety equipment.
No, the one,
State-
fire station.
Fire station is station maintenance. It should be highlighted yellow, but if not, it's the second one down in the first column.
It is, yeah.
Human resources, we have been trying to put some money there to pay for different safety items that come up during the year. We put some money there last year. They bought AED units that are now in every building. They took applications for some grant-type items. They developed a formal process for the departments to apply. They've put in for several things, and I believe they've gone to Nick for consideration of funding with the $10,000 in the current year budget, and have been selected for which ones will be funded. But inevitably during the year, things will come up with ice is falling over someone's door. It's dangerous for employees walking in and out, or our staircase out by the front doors can be really icy out there. There are a lot of things that just come up, and there was no pool of money to address them. So that's what this is trying to do, is just have a little something if there's an issue. And the next page, the duty pistol upgrade for the police department. Those are supposed to be done every so often, and based on wear and tear, this has been on their list since I've been here pretty much. He's made that his top priority, and it's a relatively smaller amount that we could fit in, and the portable surveillance camera is what they asked for. Parks and Rec, we're looking for 2 more mowers. The big one is the one that's under the TIF. Anything pink is under the TIF. And you will see that is that downtown, what we're classifying the downtown replacement snow truck, dually with the plow and the sander. And that's $300,000. And then the one below that, for Public Works, they were asking for a welder and a generator, and combined, they felt for $25,000 to replace equipment down at the Public Works garage. So those are the total, and when you go to the back page, based upon current earnings of what we are getting, and the rate's not dropping drastically below 3.5 this year, I estimate that we will clear $314,000 in interest above what you use for the budget, and that we can make the $320,000 available for the TIF funds, for the safety, and for the truck. 47 from the cemetery would pay for the green items because there is the cemetery perpetual care fund, and that can be utilized when the fund is strong enough to put some extra money into it. So I am proposing that we spend the $681,537 on the capital as listed, using those funding sources, which are all not direct taxation monies.
Thank you for the clear explanation of each of the uses and sources. One thing I wanted to point out, particularly if it's the public looking at this, because I'm new to how it's done here. And one thing to note is there's a column noted funding method. And what was listed there was just what the original department proposed. It is not what is actually happening. The color coding methodology, which is then explained on the final summary at the last page, is what is actually being used to fund those resources. It is often not what the original department suggested. An example would be they suggested if you're bonding, we should bond for this, and we're not bonding this year. But some of those items could still be paid for through TIF funds or interest earnings. And the things that aren't highlighted are items that weren't selected with the minimal amounts of funds we were able to designate, but that was, as Christina noted, vetted through each department a needs analysis, not just wants, but what was the highest priority and what could we afford, the balance of that.
Can I ask why, when the library was here, they went through a bunch of changes with HVAC stuff and things like that. Like, why wouldn't that be on here? I know some of these things that are on here that they're not all necessarily FY '27. There's things for 28, 29, 30. It's the 5-year plan, right? So why do we not have any library things?
The HVAC system was done last year.
No, but she said there was something about the headers, heat pumps or whatever,
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a bond project because of the significant. It's not eligible that I can see under the TIF and the interest, there's not enough interest to cover it. We should include it, but they did not give me any capital requests for it as of yet in writing. So when she gives it to me, I will gladly add it to the list
Okay.
and put a
Well, 'cause
potential.
the capital plan is all plans, whether it's the bond, TIF, interest, whatever, these are the projects that we want to do,
I do ask that they're submitted with the budgets, when the budgets come in, but I know there's been some staffing issues over there this budget season, and Tammy's had a lot to try to take care of. So I'll remind her that I would like updated capital requests from her to make sure that she's included on the longer-term capital for bonds next year in the future. Oh, we did fund that, and then we did put money aside for her floor project of $35,000, I think you'll see it on the other report. I think it was interest project last year as a section of floor that they really needed to get replaced. So I think she had a project that was funded with the interest last year.
Yeah, I assume that this is probably a working document, right? We don't just submit it at budget season. So, again, so the fact that she comes in budget and says, hey, we've got this, I would not assume that that was just a result of, hey, so I'm just surprised that there aren't any items on here, whether they're being funded this year or not, that there are projecting out over the next 5 years. That was my only pickup. Same with information technology. I can't believe that, there's not anything that we have coming down the pipe that we need to replace computers or laptops or things like that down, over the course of the next 5 years.
Yeah, he hasn't put anything back in, but on this most recent bond that he just finished this current year,
Yeah,
he replaced all the internet service and all the phone systems.
yeah.
So you just put $255,000 project into that equipment replacement and phone system. So he cleared that under this past bond, but he was certainly on there for a couple of years waiting. So,
Yeah. So it does look like this is more of a 3-year plan based on populated items.
27, 28, 29, 30, 31.
yeah, we did not
there's-
get,
Oh, no items. Oh, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying.
we did not get,
Human resources, 20.
what I saw originally was a one-page list with just items proposed for that year. That
Right.
was handed out at the budget.
Yeah,
And we started working on trying to get 5 years of data while Bill Post was still here. And we came up with this We still have work to do to get it to a full 5-year plan, obviously, for everybody. But we have 3. That's pretty solid numbers and data, so it's a work in progress.
I've got a question about the communications upgrade. There's a big 600,000 plus amount for the police and also for the fire. Is that like a combined program for the comm center upgrade?
It is a combined program, and that is what we put in for the CDS application this year, just last month, or weeks ago, in fact. So we're trying to get that funded by the federal government, but they didn't want to lose line of sight that they feel it's a need, whether or not that's funded, and they put in their portion. The total is adding those sums up.
So you're saying that this past year, this recent cycle, a request was made for CDS funding for $6 million?
No, that's
No.
the substation that was contemplated, the 6 million. I believe Scott was asking about the radio communications.
Yeah, it's 1.2 million, something like that.
Yep, and that's what we put forward for CDS request through at least Senator King and Collins.
Oh,
Like-
that's,
But if that doesn't come through, we're going to have to borrow 1.2 million to support that.
It's half of it's on the first line of the fire, Rebecca.
Yeah.
The other half is on the first line of the police department, listed as a regional CADCOM upgrade. It's those two figures added together to make the one figure.
wow, okay.
And we put it there for bond or grant, and they're requesting federal funding to assist with it. If not, it'll be considered the next time involved.
Okay, so that's the 623,127
Times 2.
times 2, okay.
Yeah.
So that was the CDS request, okay.
That's correct.
The other one that's listed as a CDS request in this is not until 29, and that's the 6 million for, well, it's actually more than 6 million, multiple, and that's for the substation.
I believe that's 3 iterations of 6 million, so 18 million.
Yeah.
And that's not a today request nor today problem. But we, just while we're talking about it, if that is something of interest to, council after this budget season, there are less expensive options than that as well. If you want to pursue some version of that, we are looking into much less expensive options if that's a want of a future time and place.
Right, I mean, when we're thinking about the budget, we are thinking about this year, but we're also thinking about the implications for future. So it's really helpful to have these projections, to look at what we might need to replace, what our costs are going to be.
Along those lines, it's perhaps not my place to go into great depth, but you will notice towards the end, there is a large number on the schools. And
Right.
they can certainly speak to that in their presentation, but it's not this year.
Right.
At earliest, next year, but they can speak to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, any other questions with regard to capital improvement projects or the plan? All right,
We're almost there at the finish line for tonight. I believe the last one on the list was revenue. So if you flip closer to the beginning of the book, after the summary page, it'd be close to there. And broadly speaking, it's a kind of a summary page, a tally up of different revenue sources, all in one easier to find place, but.
so we're looking at revenue projection, that's the tab? Thank you.
So we're all getting acclimated to looking at it here, because I will pass it over to the finance director. I'll just notice, but at the top is what we expect, in this preliminary budget. We've noted that we will make changes to what you see in paper here. Property taxes is one of the sources of revenue, but fortunately, there are many other sources of revenue for the city. Some of those are fees that we collect for services. Some of those are state funds for different reasons. Some of those are excise tax, et cetera. So that's the basis for what this totals up, as well as each department. Some of the departments bring in revenue, some bring in a lot of revenue, and that's tallied up here, so you don't have to go to each department to find that.
So I don't know if anybody has any specific questions. It was a little disappointing this year that projected revenue sharing was down $500,000 of what's expected to be distributed. That was a significant hit to the revenue side that had to be overcome, besides the challenges on the expense side. So I just want to point that out. You're kind of already starting as $500,000 in the hole on the revenue side. And we did project some higher that we felt we could take in, such as motor vehicle excise tax, based upon extrapolating out over the past 3 years of data. What would the average be, and what would we feel comfortable taking in based upon that? So we proposed that that be increased to $126,000 in the next year. So attempts were made to try to find areas where we could include a little bit more to make up that difference. In general, revenues outside of just departmental fees and things. So I don't know if anybody has any questions, but yeah, Nick.
And I mentioned the department revenues are noted on one of these pages, but in many of the department presentations, the department leaders have noted, compared to this printout, the preliminary budget, they've contemplated bringing in new revenues, just like code enforcement this evening, for example, is going to increase their revenue line based on very new information. So these will be updated and tallied up for you. Another number that I'd want to draw your attention to, because it's been a focus of discussion and the memos from the mayor and myself, are the use of fund balance. As you can see, it is kept at the same number as last year contemplated in this budget. That is up for your discretion. But when we've talked in the past, like the first budget workshop, about $1 million in cuts, the earliest iteration of the budget prior to even this being printed, contemplating use a lot more, $1 million more, when we got all the unfortunate news from outside our control. And this iteration contemplates using the same exact amount as last year, $1.75 million. Just earlier this week, we did receive a draft accounting of where we believe we will stand with fund balance, and it's so new that we weren't able to include it yet, but we can get that to you quite soon. It would show where we believe we stand as of the close of last fiscal year. And then if you broadly make a conservative assumption that we used all 1.75 this year, which is unlikely, we often don't use it all, then you could see how much we would assume to have left. Mm-hmm. And rather than just talk about numbers broadly, we can get you that in writing, so it'll be easier to look through if you say, well, based on the number we have, do we feel comfortable with 1.75 or a different number?
And I think the mayor, even though we weren't having the finance meeting because of the presentation next week, and because a lot of the budget numbers are in here for expenditures and revenues. He would like the quarterly report, and so that's fine, because I think if I put those numbers in that report and present it anyway without an official reporting, but so you have it, the fund balance, it'll show a clearer picture of where everybody is, revenues, expenditures, with the summary page, so far this year. So you can get an idea where this year may come out at the bottom line based on what's happened in 9 months against that fund balance. Because as he said, the one that you'll be getting is for the end of last June. So it will be helpful to have data to see how we're tracking for the current year and how that might impact. It may mean a difference of more comfort with $500,000 or no comfort at all with any additional, depending on what that looks like. So I will get that prepared to you too before you need to move forward with any final decision, so you have a little bit more data for consideration.
Do we have a presentation of the most recent audit coming up? Will we have that before we make our decision on?
Unfortunately, it's not looking like it will be in time. That is not certain, but there has been delays on the part of our audit team. But they've been working with us and communicating with us as best they can, and they're trying to correct course moving forward. But it's looking like the full audit and then the presentation might not be available to late May or early June. And that date has moved out a couple times already. But we do have pieces of it, like the fund balance was just given to us, and that's a very important component. Some of the other components, we may be able to at least talk to, whether or not give the exact numbers, if you have specific questions, though, in the meantime.
Any questions with regards to revenue? No. Okay. All right, that it? All right, thank you very much. We will see everybody on Tuesday.